Is this video a big deal? No, it's not really a big deal. This is just one comment made by one guy. But I think the sentiment here, just the emotion behind it and what this spells, this is great. And it's funny enough that I was like, yeah, I want to make a video about that. That's cool. That's a clickbaity title that we could make that technically isn't wrong. Like, this totally is a shot, right? So today we're talking about the Ottawa Senators and Jimmy Stu. Tim Stutzle, one of the best young players in the NHL and a player that I feel is really on the cusp of breaking out and posting up a 100-point season. Last year he had 90 points, he didn't even play the full year, so it's only a matter of time. Since the guy is only 21 years old, he is so good, so polished, so amazing in the National Hockey League, one of the top young players for sure. And we had ourselves an interview done with Tim Stutzle by Ian Mendes, published on The Athletic. Now, I'm going to go out there and leave a link in the description to this article right here. A rising NHL superstar was always in a hurry. At 21, he has arrived. The article is from a few days ago, September 18th, 2023, and as you could tell by the cover image, this is an entire thing done on Jimmy Stu. It's a really good piece. Ian Mendes does some good work. Link is going to be in the description if you want to go ahead and read this article yourself. But the comment that we're referring to in regards to Jimmy Stu and the Ottawa Senators, beyond the skills, beyond what he is as a player, beyond how good he is, goes over the situation with money. Shout out to Derek Lee on Twitter. He does some really good work, and we've been connected on Twitter for a few years now. He tweeted out a little excerpt from this article of Tim Stutzle's championship mindset. What an absolute gem. Linked is a quote from the article from Jimmy Stu. Personally, I think if someone is making $10 or $11 million, it makes it hard to win with the salary cap. But with everybody making under 9 in our young core, I think we have a really good chance to win. And the only goal I really have is to win a Stanley Cup with this group of guys. And of course, when somebody says $10 or $11 million a year, there's normally one team that people think about when it comes to those dollar amounts. The Toronto Maple Leafs. Let's go over to active NHL players and sort the AAV amounts of guys in the NHL right now. How many players are going to have a contract over $10+ million? Well, you have 15. Barkov, Kopitar, Bobrovsky, Eichel, Price, Huberdeau. But if you go over to the top of the NHL, you'll notice that there are 3 Toronto Maple Leafs guys. Marner, Tavares, Matthews, you could even say maybe Nylander on his next contract if the Maple Leafs decide to do that. Matthews also got an extension, making him the highest paid NHL player to be ever in terms of AAV amount. And when it comes to Jimmy Stu's perspective, he is essentially condemning this process, saying that if you've got at least one guy making 10 or 11 million, it becomes hard to win. But with us, hey, we don't have anybody making over 9. Everybody took a salary cap discount, and you could debate that some of these contracts were maybe signed a little bit too early, or some of these guys haven't proven it yet. We had talked about this about the Jake Sanderson video a few days ago, but even though Sanderson has only played, 70-something NHL games, this guy signed on till the end of 2032 at $8.05 million. If Sanderson improves in the ways that we feel he can, there's no telling how much of a steal this contract is going to be. Shabbat is making 8. You've got Drake Batherson making 5. Brady Tkachuk just a shade over 8. Jimmy Stu himself 8.3. This team does not have any guys over that 8-point-something mil. Everybody's under 9, and you could very well debate that if Jimmy Stu gets 100 points next year, it's not that surprising. If Jimmy Stu gets 100 points next year, and the year after that, if he continues getting 100-point seasons and becomes, let's say, one of the top Ottawa Senators forwards for point production ever, that's not surprising here. That's not an unrealistic outcome. For Brady Tkachuk, this guy's making just about 8.2 mil. He was a point-per-game guy last year. If he continues being a point-per-game player, also racking up the penalty minutes, also standing up for his team as the captain, then there's no telling how successful his individual player profile can be at this level. Not to mention all the other players you've got. Artem Zub, Jacob Chychrun, 4.6 mil each. You could debate that some of these guys are paid a little bit better than others, but at the end of the day, the Sens don't have any of these big money guys that are superseding the cap and entering the top of the league in terms of AAV players. We've already seen with Toronto, it's difficult for them to make it to the second round in the first place, and it's even more difficult for them to look good in the second round with 3 $10 million players on their roster. They might even have themselves another one if Nylander signs soon, or if somebody gets traded away, then who knows what's going to go on with the Maple Leafs. But Jimmy Stu literally calling out the Maple Leafs in this way, saying that, yeah, the Toronto formula, it's not really good. Sure, he doesn't say that verbatim, but that's essentially what he's calling out, right? It's a ballsy comment to make, but it's one that I feel is very, very true. Here's an article on hockeypatrol.com from the other day talking about the said comment Tim Stutzle made towards the Toronto Maple Leafs. Tim Stutzle takes a shot at the core four. The article here says that it's hard not to see Jimmy Stu's comments as a jab at the Leafs core four, especially as Matthews just signed a huge extension and William Nylander waiting on an extension that could be in the range of $9 million AAV. It's interesting to see Stutzle include the monetary value in his comments on why he believes the Sens core has a good chance to win. Obviously, the Leafs' Austin Matthews, William Nylander, Marner, and Tavares are light years ahead of the Sens forwards in terms of production and development. Okay, maybe not production per se. Jimmy Stu is right there. So is Brady. So I think that's a little bit premature, or just say incorrect to say. But the Maple Leafs core guys are indeed ahead in terms of development, so it is obvious they deserve to be paid for that. Another interesting part is that many teams have won the Cup with a player making over $9 million. Last year, the Knights won with Stone making 9.5 and Eichel making 10. And you still gotta remember, also, Sergei Bobrovsky made the finals last year as a $10 million goalie. Now, I know it's difficult to really encapsulate that since goalies are weird, but last year, Bobrovsky made the finals, Eichel made the finals, Carey Price made the finals. He was the first player, I believe, ever in the NHL's history to make the finals on a $10 million AAV contract. You have to remember that Patrick Kane, Taves, they got their $10 million paydays after all their Stanley Cup appearances. So it is still exceedingly rare to see $10 million plus guys make the finals in the first place. It's happened, especially recently, but it's not common. So for the Maple Leafs, I mean, it's harder for them. Sure, Matthews, Nylander, Marner, Tavares, talented players, but it's more difficult for them to build a core that is worth buying into beyond that core four, compared to the Ottawa Senators, who are making pretty good savings on guys at the top of their games who are not making 10 plus mil. You've got all these less than $9 million guys doing their thing and saving whatever dollars you can get. And the mid-tier guys in the Sens are also pulling their weight at pretty good dollar amounts too. Vladimir Tarasenko's making 5. If that guy gets 30 goals and 60, 70 points next season, I don't think anybody's too surprised. That's a lot of value for a guy only making 5. Claude Giroux making 6.5, same thing going with him. The Maple Leafs don't have many players, I feel, other than the Buntings and the Hymans, both of whom are gone. And you could say the Nyes or the Bertuzzis this upcoming season, who boast that similar profile, but of course, it's just going to take a while to see that. Bertuzzi's great. I love Bertuzzi. Domi, same thing. You could say similar things about Nyes, but it's relatively unproven so far in Toronto, which is why there's a little bit of uncertainty there. The point is, though, the Ottawa Senators have star players that are taking discounts, and they're not making $10, $11+ million a year like the Stars in Toronto are. Jimmy Stu in that aspect has a point, and it's one that he so eloquently pointed out in his interview with Ian Mendez. So again, the link is going to be in the description if you want to go ahead and read the article yourself. It's a good deep dive as to what Stutzle has accomplished so far and how good he is, but the comments were indeed one that I thought were funny enough to make a video about, right? So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about Stutzle low-key, by proxy, calling out the Toronto Maple Leafs core four? Do you think that's actually what he did here? Do you think I'm kind of a fool for making this video in the way that I did? I know I am. Like, I'm not going to go out there and hide it. I had to clickbait you to make this video, get views, and hopefully get me a payday. So that's kind of how the YouTube cycle works. I'm not going to pretend I'm much better than I really am. But either way, thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about this entire Stutzle commenting situation? I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.